Hi everyone and welcome back to our art class. So today I'm just going to quickly go over some different types of fonts that you can use as a style of lettering. Remember, the difference between a font and printing, just regular writing, is a font is more drawn, it's more artistic. So as you go through this process, I want you to think about how can you make this regular writing more interesting or more creative. First letter I'm going to show you is how to do bubble letters, at least how I do bubble letters. In general, always do what works best for you. Maybe you take some of my ideas and mix them with your own. I have my handy dandy pencil here. I have my eraser, and I also have a Sharpie for demonstration purposes as well. I'm going to start just by writing the letter B. Dang it, I'm upside down again, aren't I? Sorry guys, I'm upside down. My bad. Alright, so we have the letter B here in front of us. I hope everyone can see that. Now, I'm going to go in with my Sharpie, but I highly recommend you do this in pencil first because pencil erases, but for demonstration purposes, I want to show you this. Now, the way I think about it is I have my regular written B in regular print. I just wrote it out. Now, I'm going to go around it and kind of put a bubble going around it. Now think about bubbles. The type of line that a bubble uses is a curved line. So sometimes it's best to add just a little bit more of a curve to where you would have a straight line. Then wherever you have an opening, like you do in the middle of this B, instead of having that big opening, I'm just going to draw a little curved line, almost like a backward C, and do the same thing there. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to erase those pencil lines. Remember, always work in pencil first instead of in pen because you can do exactly this. And then later on, you can have a nice clean piece of paper and you can continue on your way. You can always outline later. You can do this with all letters. So if I wanted to do an O, I could do just the letter O down here at the bottom. And then using pencil again, all you're going to do is you're going to continue the process. You're just going to pretend like you're putting a bubble around the letter O. And then again, add that backward C. And then you're going to erase wherever you have those pencil lines showing through. Remember, it's always better to draw lighter rather than darker. This really helps the process. Okay? Now, if I wanted to do something or another letter in another style of writing, like block letters, I think about block letters as I think about the shapes. So again, let's do the letter R. So I'm going to start just by printing my regular letter. Okay. Then I'm going to think about the shape that a block is. The shape that a block is a rectangle. So wherever my letter is meeting the bottom, I'm going to put right below there a straight line, just like a rectangle has. Okay. Then I'm going to bring up my rectangular block side all the way to the top. I'm going to go and follow, but instead of following this curve, I'm going to make it more like a block. So I'm going to keep using straight lines. I'm going to bring this in, following that letter. Then instead of this curved line at the bottom of my R, I'm going to just do a straight line, straight line, straight line. Now I'm going to connect if I have to make any adjustments. I'm going to bring another straight line to the bottom here. And then I'm going to bring this one all the way up and connect them. So the bubble, you're putting a bubble around it. The block, you're putting a block around it. And then in the middle here, I'm just going to draw a small square, like so. And I'm going to outline my block letter in Sharpie to make it a little bit easier to see. Remember, pencil first. Just think about the different types of lines that shapes use. Bubble letters use curved lines. Block letters use straight lines, like shapes, like squares and rectangles. Now that I have that, I'm going to go through and I'm going to erase my regular written letter, the one we started with. And there I have my block letter. Now, if I wanted to do this with other letters, again, with the O, I would start by just drawing my regular O. And then I'm going to put a box or a block going around it. Like so. Going into the middle and just making a smaller one of those shapes. Like so. I'm going to go in only after I'm done and outline it in something darker, if that is my intention. And then go in and erase my previous written print. Okay, so now I have my letters there. And I can just continue this process. Putting a box around my letter. It's kind of following that general path, but instead of using curved lines, I'm using straight lines. And make any adjustments that you see necessary. Outline. And then erase. Okay. If you wanted to make your letter three-dimensional, the best way I find to do it is to go up to the corners of your block letters and draw a line on the diagonal going outwards towards the edge of the paper. Then go over to the next corner that shares on the same line, and you're going to draw another line going the same direction. You want these to be parallel lines, so these lines will never intersect. Then you're going to connect them. Like so. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom here. I want this line and this line to be parallel so they never intersect. So I'm going to draw it so they don't crisscross. Go in the same direction, but they'll never crisscross. They will be like parallel lines like a railroad. Then I'm going to connect the dots. It's starting to look a little bit more three-dimensional. I'm going to go down to the bottom here. Same thing. All my corners are pointing the same direction. Now this letter goes a little bit behind my O. So I'm going to have to use my imagination a little bit to connect these dots. Down to this leg. Same direction, following the same path as my other lines. And then I'm going to connect it to the rest of my letter. And then I can outline it. Sometimes it helps to use a ruler for this. And then if I wanted to, I could maybe color in these edges. To make it a little bit more and more. So now I have a three-dimensional letter. You would do that same thing to anything like the O. Draw my lines, parallel lines, connect them. You want your parallel lines to be about the same length too. Bottom, parallel line, use your imagination, draw the line going behind the other letter, and then outline. Like so. When you're doing 3D letters, you want to make sure that all of your shading is going the same direction. So my R, all my shading is going to the right. My O, all my shading is going to the right. And then my C, all my shading would go towards the right. So same thing. That way all your lines are going the same direction, your parallel lines. Parallel lines at the top corners of this block letter. Parallel line at the bottom of the C. And then I would have one right here too, where there's a corner. And I'd bring this line up, and then this line this way. All your lines should be directionally going the same way. Eventually it becomes really, really easy, and you can kind of get really creative with the process. Like so. So we have our bubble letters. Again, if I wanted to make another, let's make the name Bob. So if I was to make the name Bob, I would draw another B, regular print, draw a bubble going around my B, curved line where there's a straight line, little C, backward C in the middle, outline. Like so. Then go in and erase. There are so many different types of fonts that you can use between bubble, block, and 3D letters. You can always just mix up your letters too. Maybe you're just getting kind of creative and experimental. Maybe you're drawing some wiggly lines, the same kind of just direction as a normal letter, but just making it a little bit more special. And then I'm gonna just follow the path I drew and outline it. Making any little adjustments that I might want to. You can turn any boring old letter into something nifty if you try hard enough. So get creative with it, have fun, learn from any mistakes you might make. I'm going to turn these into little leaves, so they're kind of like vines. Maybe I'll throw in a flower too. Can get real funky with it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just try your hardest. Make any changes you see necessary. Have fun, guys.